Qatar's foreign ministry has released a statement denouncing Israeli attacks across Gaza, and it reads, "The state of Qatar strongly condemns the brutal attacks carried out by the Israeli occupation in the Gaza Strip, which have resulted in martyrs and injuries, and considers them a dangerous escalation that threatens to undermine the ceasefire agreement in the Strip." The ministry affirms the need for concerted regional and international efforts to preserve and uphold the ceasefire agreement as a step towards ending the war on Gaza and achieving a just and sustainable peace in the region. Let's now speak to Mohammad Shehda. He's a political analyst from Gaza and a visiting fellow with the European Council on Foreign Relations, joining us live now from Copenhagen. Thank you for speaking to us here at Al Jazeera. Now, seeing more violations by Israel and Qatar, a pivotal player in ending this war. Yet to hear from the US. We have heard from France earlier as well on this. But Israel, is it likely to heed any of these condemnations at all?
Well, with the Israelis, they spent 2 years pulverizing Gaza, turning it to ash and dust. They spent over $100 billion in that process of implementing genocide and lost close to 900 soldiers. They're not going to relent easily after all of this and let Gaza live. That's why we see Netanyahu having this two-dimensional plan. Either Gaza stays permanently as a refugee camp in ruins that is unlivable, uninhabitable, and that sustains conditions that are designed to bring about collapse to life there, to organize human existence, which is the definition of genocide, or Hamas retaliates and Israel uses it as an excuse to resume the genocide. And in that picture, you see Netanyahu and the Israeli army consistently every day trying to provoke a retaliation, trying to provoke a reaction, trying to kill as many people as Trump would allow them to get away with. So the picture that you have right now is Trump has put Netanyahu on a dog leash. He's not allowed to collapse the ceasefire explicitly, but that dog leash is very loose. It allows him to get away with a lot, not opening the Rafah border crossing, restricting the amount of tents, the amount of food that is going into Gaza, continuing to demolish homes in Gaza until this moment. But Netanyahu is also chewing on that leash, trying to break free by massacres like the one we saw yesterday, where he's trying to go with a spectacular display of violence designed to collapse the ceasefire while pointing the finger of blame at Palestinians.
And Mohammad Shehda, you mentioned there Netanyahu. I just want to go to that point because Netanyahu says Israel acts on its own authority. In fact, he addressed the Israeli parliament just last week, saying that the war hasn't ended. So do you think that the attacks that we're seeing, and certainly this latest round, do you think it speaks to that he doesn't really want to end this war?
Yeah, precisely. Up until this moment, Israel has not given up on its idea, its plan of ethnic cleansing in Gaza, the idea of reintroducing Jewish-only settlements in Gaza, the idea of pushing people out. That's why we see Israel a few days ago shoving about 100 Palestinians on a charter flight to South Africa unannounced through a proxy, a front Israeli company run by an Israeli-Lithuanian businessman. That's why you see Israel until now dividing Gaza into East Gaza, West Gaza, with an invisible yellow line that is deadlier than the Berlin Wall. East Gaza, nobody is allowed to live there except for the IDF and a few hundred gang members that are cultivated by Israel as proxy groups. Israel is destroying everything there systematically in Rafah, Jabalia, Beit Hanun, and they're not allowing any reconstruction into West Gaza. All of it is because those ideas of the genocide are still there. I think the biggest red flag that everyone should have noticed from the moment the Trump deal went into effect is neither Ben Gvir nor Smotrich resigned from Netanyahu's government, because both of those extremist ministers have repeatedly said that if the war comes to an end, they would leave the government and collapse it immediately. But neither of them did, because they understand this Trump deal is not going to end the war. It is allowing Israel to continue the genocide by other means. That's all about it.
So how do you explain Israel not being held accountable for these violations? I will say that Israel seems to blame Hamas for violations, but we are seeing Israel carrying out a large number of deaths, even despite the ceasefire.
Because this ceasefire is all about spectacle. It's not a plan. It's not a framework. It's just a performance. If you look at the record, the main interest that Trump had with this ceasefire was the Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't get it, but he got the second best thing, which was positive media coverage in the entire American mainstream media, from the very right to the very left. And Trump, the only reason why the ceasefire is holding until now is because he does not like the spectacle of failure. He doesn't like to be seen that Netanyahu played him for a fool, for a sucker. And that's why we see the ceasefire continuing nominally on a formal level, but not in substance. We see Israel getting away with a lot without being called out at all, because we are told repeatedly Trump doesn't care for details. He just cares about the spectacle that he got peace in Gaza. And that's about it.
All right, thank you very much for your thoughts on all of that and what is happening in Gaza. Mohammad Shehda there.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.